I'm Jennifer Zabasaja. This edition of Quick Take Charge is presented by American Express. Let's get going. And we're starting the show today with our Quick Take focus of the day, International Youth Day, which happens to be today. Whether it's business, philanthropy, politics, or activism, young people around the world are using their voices to create and inspire change. And when it comes to climate activism, young people are really leading the charge. So how bright is the future looking for Gen Z? This year, we've seen wildfires and extreme weather across the world. A record-breaking heat wave swept the Pacific Northwest in June. Temperatures in Sicily hit a record 120 degrees, and the UN called the latest IPCC report a, quote, code red for humanity. Well, joining us now to discuss climate activism among young people is 20-year-old Marina Velasco. She is one of the 3 young claimants taking the UK government to court over its failure to act decisively on the climate crisis. Marina, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, where are you joining us from? And are you in a tent right now?
Yeah, I am actually, and I'm in Puebla in Mexico at the moment. Yeah.
Talk to us. Okay, so you are one of a growing group of climate activists really pushing for change. Talk to us first about why it's been so important for you to be so outspoken about the issue.
Well, I think it's important for all of us, especially we're bringing this case, for example, alongside communities globally, because, this climate crisis that we're talking about is not a distant future, but rather an imminent reality that our communities, our families are really living through, and so I think even through that, it's important, I guess, to talk about, the criminality that we're all living. We're living structural violence, living, the contamination of our waters, of our airs, and that is a criminality that is being, lived, that is being imposed on our lives and futures and communities across the world right now.
And talk about how you came together with the 2 other claimants in this case. I mean, how did you guys all connect, and sort of what was the message that you all united on in bringing the UK government to court?
I think, well, we all met, from collective spaces. All of us have been, involved in different stuff, whether it be anti-racist struggles or for climate struggles, for justice. And I think, how we united is really our fight in defense of life, and how we are really, sure that, as diaspora, for example, in the UK, it actually makes us complicit in the death and destruction of our human family when our taxes are going towards the perpetuation of a climate crisis that is exacerbating, the destruction of our communities, of our lands, of our waters, by, for example, transnational companies that are backed by the UK government and by a system, because 15% of global emissions pass through the City of London, for example, and so just that is testament to the violence that the UK government is perpetuating and that is causing on a global scale.
And what's your take on sort of the response from governments at this point in time? I mean, I mentioned at the top of the show, we got that IPCC report this week, just sort of confirming what we knew about the climate crisis. What's your take on sort of how governments are responding at this point in time, and what do you want to see from them?
Well, I think there are 2 things in that report that are really crucial to deal with. I think the first one is that the report does not go far enough. In the report, it talks about humans being, the cause of the climate crisis. And I think right now, for example, where I am in Puebla, I'm with a group of, 14 indigenous communities that have created this resistance called Pueblos Unidos. Now, they have been, resisting the criminal extraction of their waters by transnational company Bonafont and Danone. And what's clear is that, these humans, they're not the cause of the climate crisis. It's really the minority that is the cause of the climate crisis, not the global majority. These are land defenders, water defenders, people that are in defense of life. And even just that, like 5% of the world population is indigenous, yet they protect 80% of the world's biodiversity. So I think in the report, it's important to talk about that, because really, the crisis that we're seeing is a systematic crisis caused by capitalism and imperialism. And so I think in response to what governments are doing, I think governments are, knowingly perpetuating this crisis. On the 15th of June, we received, a notice from the government saying that, any discriminatory impacts of the climate crisis can be objectively and reasonably justified. But, how can the murder of our, global human family and the destruction of our lands be justified? It can't be, but they're using all this legal language to legitimize the violence that they're really perpetuating. And so it really is a calculated, active, perpetuation of imperialism that we are living right now across the world, and that the UK and the US are really perpetuating at the moment.
And part of it, though, Marina, is that, we've heard from the IPCC and from others that it is going to be developing communities, developing countries that do need to be a part of the solution. So then what would you say to governments? How do they need to be supporting these communities, I guess? Because ultimately it's one world, right? So how do you bring everybody together and support these communities who you said are not the biggest contributors to sort of the crisis that we're in right now?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'd say, a few things, I think first of all, supporting initiatives for planetary repairs is really good. Also, stopping the harm. I think governments, are actually actively perpetuating this crisis, carrying on perpetuating this crisis, and are continuing funding it. Even Bonafont here, is funded 43% by the US, 10% by the UK. All of that is evidence for the continuous funding of these companies that are fulfilling, playing out this crisis, and so I'd say, stop the harm, fund planet repairs, and also I think support grassroots movements. And I think lastly, actually, really importantly, environmental defenders are really being persecuted at the moment. These are the defenders, as I said previously, of our lands, of our waters. Here in Puebla, for example, there's persecution of environmental defenders that were defending the Rio Metlapanapa, and also in Mexicali right now that are resisting against, Constellation brands. So I think, that making sure that stops, we stop the criminalization of protest and the criminalization of the defense of life, because it's essential.
Are you hopeful, Marina?
I think, like communally, we are taking this case, and I think we are visibilizing the destruction. And actually, I think it's been beautiful in terms of, sharing experiences, working collectively in this fight, collectively with our communities globally. And I think that's a beautiful thing that actually has been, enabled. And I think, I'm hopeful, because this is a fight for life, and really we have no other choice. It's either, hope or death. And I think there's no point thinking about death in these times. We have to be moving forward.
Absolutely. Marina, thanks so much for starting us off today. A great example of International Youth Day at its finest. Marina Trix, climate activist, thank you so much for your time.